Over the weekend, the Higher Education Minister, Dr. Blade Nzimande, announced new plans for the National Student Financial Aid Scheme to help fund students in what's often called the missing middle. These are students who have a family income above the level required to qualify for NSFAS funding. The new plans involve 3.6 billion rand that will be extended to students in the form of loans. Professor Francis Petersen is the Vice-Chancellor of the University of the Free State and Chair of University South Africa. Professor Petersen, good afternoon to you. Do you think these plans are going to work? Is it the right response to the problems we have?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and to your viewers. It is a correct response. I think that group always have been a challenge, the missing middle group. But it is a question of timing. I do think that a lot is happening this time of the year for universities in relation to the NSFAS funding that goes for the poor and the working class. And now you have this model that is also going to be introduced and is welcomed by USAF. But it is the implementation timing that I presume is going to have a lot of challenge for the universities.
In other words, it was announced too late for this year.
I would say if USAF have sort of indicated it would be probably better if the implementation could have been in 2025. That would allow universities to get used to this new model, for NSFAS to be able to define the criteria more effectively and clearly, and also to see how the implementation modality would work. Mm-hmm. But I want to say, Stephen, for us as USAF, we will do our utmost to work with NSFAS and the Department of Higher Education Training to be able to see how we can get this model implemented effectively. It's now been announced, and we will have to work together to be able to make sure that it's being implemented effectively so that we can ensure a stable environment, specifically during the registration of our students.
One of the things I don't quite understand yet, it was not entirely clear to me, is how some learners will qualify and some won't. Now, I understand the criteria, but there's surely going to be many, many learners that would qualify for this. Not all of those will be able to be funded. Is it quite clear how qualifying students are going to be chosen? I can see all sorts of arguments over this.
Yeah. So there is going to be a set of criteria, obviously, and that criteria need to be developed by NSFAS. And we will make sure that we would get that criteria as soon as possible. So I can't really comment on the criteria. But what I can say, and as the Minister has indicated, there is about 47% of students in the missing middle cohort would likely be funded by this comprehensive student funding model. But you must also realize that higher education institutions has for many years got their own funding mechanisms for the missing middle group. So in that group you will have funding coming from the own institutions themselves. There will be funding coming from through bursaries from companies, from the private sector, from foundations. So it's not that there is going to be a lot of students necessarily that's not going to be funded. It surely is going to be much higher than the 47% if we have to add the other funding mechanisms. That wasn't made clear in the announcement, but that is part of the missing middle funding. So it's much more comprehensive than just the funding that the Minister has announced.
There are various questions about the NSFAS system at the moment in various ways, and obviously there are all sorts of investigations underway. The NSFAS system as a whole, do you think there's a better way to do this, to try and crack the problem that we have of so many students who need money, need financial help to study? Is there a better approach that maybe we should look at, or do you think the NSFAS system can actually be improved and work more effectively?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think there's a better approach. I think it needs to be just has to be made more effective. And if I take the NSFAS model as it runs at the moment, which is purely a grant system, there we should just try to build more effectiveness into the system and assist the current competencies that's there. You must remember when the announcement was made by the former president about free higher education, and specifically for the poor and the working class, that came very quickly. So there was a NSFAS configuration at that point, but they had to adapt very quickly their systems to be able to support the large proportion of students that then needed to be funded. And since then, NSFAS didn't really catch up with the pace of development because there were so many other pressures. So I think if we put our attention to that and restore that systems, and as I indicated earlier, Stephen, that we see NSFAS, the universities, and the Department of Higher Education and Training working together, we should try to use the skills also amongst those three to be able to make sure that we make the systems and the delivery of the NSFAS model as it currently stands far more effective. So I don't think the approach needs to change. It is how do you improve the delivery of the system. The new funding model, which is a loan system, that one I have to think a little bit more carefully, because there you have to bring in potentially the South African Revenue Systems services, because you have to collect some of those loans, and you need to have people that understand that space. So that is one of the things that I think the system, the sector, USAF, is also have a little bit of concern, but we will work together with NSFAS and the department to be able to see how we could resolve that effectively.
Professor, I don't know if you've seen the fuss over the fake qualifications again, as sort of another example of this appearing to emerge this week. Business Day reporting the economist Tabi Leoka does not have a PhD, despite claiming she does. And we've seen this over the last few years, people faking qualifications. For you as University of South Africa, it must be so frustrating when people say they have university degrees they don't have.
Oh, yeah. No, it is frustrating. I can't really comment on that particular case because I haven't got all the detail. But one of the things that is important, Stephen, is to build credibility and more trust in the public higher education environment, and that will be one of the continuing goals of the University of South Africa. And to be able to do that, we need to work together as a sector. We need to work together as actors in that sector, and then we will deal with challenges like that. We will deal with other challenges in the institutions, but to restore that credibility, if it was eroded, and to make sure that the public have got full trust in our university sector, that would be a very, very important priority for us at USAF.
So, Professor, part of this, I think, is, and I know of cases where journalists will phone a university to ask if a person has the qualification they say they have. So someone might say to them, look, I don't think this person has the qualification. The university won't tell them. And what that means is that someone can just keep lying in public. And it seems to me that universities, I don't think they're doing this deliberately, but they're making it easier for people to lie. Do universities have an obligation, if someone says they're having a qualification and they don't, if they're lying or not, that the university should actually say? If a journalist phones the university, if whoever phones the university and says, look, I want to know if this person has the degree they say they have, does Stephen Critters have his B.Journ or not, the university should say, shouldn't they?
Yeah, no, I think they got a role to play there, Stephen. It is about what is the vetting mechanism. You know, it's like a reference check on a candidate that apply for a position. So we will have to double check within the university sectors what is the vetting mechanism, and are you actually, as a journalist, speaking to the right people in the universities. And if that is a concern, then that needs to be fixed. Certainly, if a university is requested to comment on somebody's degrees and the validity of that degree, one need to understand where does the request come from, because you can't just respond to any request. And then there need to be a solid mechanism within the university to be able to say this is either truth or not, and that need to be looked into.
I mean, it shouldn't be hard. Surely, either someone has the degree or they don't.
Yeah, but Stephen, is also important to anybody could call in, and so it's about we've got POPIA, we've got in place in the institution. So it is who asked the information and how is that information conveyed to the requester. So I would ordinarily say institutions should do that, should provide that information, but there are certain mechanisms and vetting processes need to be adhered. And if they do that in that framework, then I fully support that.
Professor Francis Peterson, really appreciate the time. Thank you, and thank you for answering the question on that. The Vice-Chancellor at the University of the Free State and also Chair of Universities South Africa.